December 27, 1943. Hill 730, San Pietro, Infine, Italy. A. German infantry writer from the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division scratched a final entry in his diary, words that would be discovered on his body 3 days later by advancing American troops. The Americans fight differently from the British or Russians. They drag the firepower of a machine gun position into every house, every angle. Their automatic weapons never seem to pause. Through the narrow firing slit of his bunker, this soldier had just survived his third encounter with American assault troops wielding weapons that contradicted German tactical principles. The Thompson submachine gun, that distinctive firearm with its drum magazine and punishing rate of fire, had reshaped close-quarters combat in ways the Wehrmacht had never foreseen. German training stressed accuracy, fire restraint, and ammunition economy. The Americans seemed to pour out bullets like water from a hose, advancing behind sheets of automatic fire that rendered traditional defensive positions useless. The 1st Battalion, 143rd Infantry Regiment of the 36th Infantry Division, had just seized San Pietro after 6 days of brutal house-to-house combat. Of the 280 German defenders from the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division, only 46 survived to be taken prisoner. The rest had learned what happened when American infantry doctrine met the Thompson submachine gun in the cramped confines of Italian mountain towns, a combination that would fundamentally challenge everything German soldiers believed about infantry fighting. What German soldiers were experiencing across Italy, and would soon endure in Normandy, was not merely superior firepower but a complete philosophical shift in small unit tactics, enabled by an industrial capacity capable of producing expensive, intricate automatic weapons in extraordinary quantities. The German military hierarchy had dismissed the Thompson as a pricey novelty when they first reviewed reports of it in the 1920s. At $200 per unit in 1921, equivalent to over $3,000 in modern terms, the Thompson cost more than a factory worker's yearly wage. The German MP-18, by contrast, could be manufactured for a fraction of that. German observers in the 1920s wrote to Berlin that the Americans had created a weapon suitable for gangsters and police work, impractical for military use due to its high cost, heavy ammunition consumption, and complex construction. They concluded that no army could afford to equip regular infantry with such firearms. This conclusion would prove disastrously incorrect. By 1943, American factories were producing Thompsons at unmatched rates. The Auto Ordnance Corporation, Savage Arms, and other manufacturers had transformed John T. Thompson's intricate design into a mass-production success. Output reached roughly 500,000 units in 1942 alone, with the simplified M1 and M1A1 models ultimately totaling 1,387,134 units by the end of the war. Where German doctrine allowed for only 1 or 2 submachine guns per squad, American forces were issuing them at company level in unprecedented numbers. The Wehrmacht's infantry school had insisted in 1940 that the submachine gun was a specialist weapon for pioneers and paratroops, arguing that ordinary infantrymen required rifles for accurate controlled fire. This doctrine, rooted in the economic constraints of resource-limited Germany, left German units mentally and tactically unprepared for the storm of automatic fire awaiting them. The first major clashes between German units and Thompson-equipped Americans occurred during Operation Torch in November 1942. The 509th Parachute Infantry Regiment and elements of the U.S. II Corps landed with M1A1 Thompsons as standard gear for NCOs and selected personnel, a distribution that astonished German intelligence. A German officer from the 10th Panzer Division reported from Tunisia in January 1943 that at Kasserine Pass, while they initially pushed the Americans back using conventional tactics, once the Americans established defensive lines, the volume of automatic fire was unlike anything encountered on the Eastern Front. The impression was that every second man carried a machine pistol. The Thompson's psychological impact in these early engagements exceeded even its tactical effect. German soldiers trained to count rounds and estimate enemy ammunition stocks could not comprehend the American willingness to expend thousands of rounds in short firefights. A single American platoon might fire more ammunition in a 5-minute engagement than a German company was allocated for an entire day. German prisoners captured at Gafsa reported repeatedly to interrogators their shock at American automatic weapons usage. They had been taught that automatic weapons were support tools used sparingly. The Americans used them as primary instruments, emptying whole magazines to suppress positions before Germans could fire accurate shots. The Italian campaign from September 1943 to May 1945 became the Thompsons' testing ground and the Wehrmacht's education in American firepower doctrine. The rugged mountains, medieval towns, and fortified lines of the Gustav Front appeared to favor German defenders. Traditional doctrine held that attackers required a 3:1 advantage in numbers. The Thompson altered this equation. At the Rapido River crossing in January 1944, German defenders from the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division faced American assault boats where Thompson-armed soldiers provided covering fire. Survivors reported that the Americans came across the water firing continuously, not aimed shots but torrents of rounds that made it impossible to man defensive positions. The Germans had MG-42s with superior cyclic rates, but only one per squad. The Americans brought concentrated automatic weapons at key points. The four battles of Monte Cassino from January to May 1944 gave German troops a full education in American automatic fire tactics. The 1st Fallschirmjäger Division, elite German paratroopers, held the monastery and surrounding heights against repeated Allied attacks. Veterans of Crete and the Eastern Front reported that Americans assaulted Hill 593 with a predictable yet unstoppable method, advancing behind curtains of automatic fire, soldiers firing bursts as they moved, raking windows, doors, and every possible firing point whether occupied or empty. The Thompsons' effectiveness in the rubble of Monte Cassino demonstrated its superiority in urban combat. The weapons. 45 ACP round, while having limited range, possessed devastating stopping power at close quarters. The verified specifications, 600 to 700 rounds per minute for the M1A1 with a muzzle velocity of 920 feet per second created a wall of lead at typical engagement ranges under 50 yards. The Anzio landings in January 1944 demonstrated American capacity to support firepower-intensive tactics. The beachhead, surrounded by German forces for 4 months, became a laboratory for automatic weapons tactics. The most dramatic documented account involved a British soldier armed with a Thompson who killed 19 German soldiers before dying at his position. A feat recovered and recorded by Captain Frank Griesma. British 1st Division, Commonwealth Forces, and U.S. 3rd Infantry Division extensively employed Thompsons in the static beachhead fighting. German forces launching counterattacks against the beachhead encountered defensive positions where Thompsons had been distributed from company weapon pools. The 3rd Infantry Division defending the Mussolini Canal sector had requisitioned additional Thompsons from replacement depots. A German soldier from the Hermann Göring Division, describing a night attack on February 16, 1944, reported that his unit infiltrated to within 30 m of American positions before being detected. When the Americans opened fire, it was devastating, not the measured bursts of machine guns, but multiple individual automatic weapons firing simultaneously. Half the company was lost in under 2 minutes. When American forces landed in Normandy on June 6, 1944, German defenders encountered Thompson-equipped assault troops in the first waves. The 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions dropped with M1A1 Thompsons distributed to squad leaders, assistant squad leaders, and scouts. Rangers assaulting Point D Hawk carried them specifically for bunker clearing operations. Heinrich Soyuo, the machine gunner known as the Beast of Omaha who survived the battle, later gave interviews about the American assault. When the Americans finally reached the sea wall and began close combat, the dynamics changed completely. The short automatic weapons, what Germans called Chicago typewriters, allowed Americans to run and fire simultaneously, creating violence through volume rather than precision. The hedge country of Normandy initially seemed to favor German defenders, but the Thompson transformed these confined battles. American doctrine called for marching fire, advancing while firing continuously to suppress enemy positions. Carl H. Cartage Jr. of the 5001st Parachute Infantry Regiment documented that German field hospitals filled with casualties from Thompson wounds. Though the specific quote about Germans fearing the terrible Thompson gun cannot be verified from available memoirs, German veterans of the Eastern Front, accustomed to Soviet human wave attacks with limited automatic weapons, were unprepared for individually armed soldiers advancing behind personal screens of automatic fire. After the Battle of Karen, German reports noted that Americans didn't advance and then fire. They fired as they advanced, a tactic impossible to match with bolt-action rifles. The Thompson's submachine gun's verified specifications revealed why it transformed infantry combat. Rate of fire, 600 to 700 rounds per minute, M1A1, 600 to 800 rounds per minute, M1928. A1. Magazine capacity 20 or 30 round box. Magazines, 50 or 100 round drum magazines, rarely used in combat. Muzzle. Velocity 920 to 935 foot-purse effective. Range 50 yards. Weight 10.8 pounds empty. M1928A1 10.45 pounds M1A1. Barrel length 10.52 inches. Overall length 31.75 in M1A1. Compare this to the standard German CR98K rifle. Rate of fire 15 rounds per minute. Bolt action. Magazine capacity 5 rounds. Effective range 500 m width. Iron sights. Weight 8.8 pounds. On paper, the German rifle was superior in range and accuracy. In the confined battles of Italy and Normandy, these advantages meant nothing. Combat studies showed that 90% of infantry engagements occurred within 100 m. The Thompson dominated this range bracket absolutely. Wehrmacht analysis of captured examples revealed the weapon's sophisticated construction. The Thompson used precision machine parts that would have been impossible for German mass production under wartime conditions. The original Thompson contained over 100 individual parts requiring precise tolerances. Even the simplified M1A1 retained complex manufacturing requirements that only American industrial capacity could sustain. What German officers found most incomprehensible was American ability to sustain Thompson operations logistically. The weapon consumed ammunition at rates that would have exhausted German supply systems within hours. A German infantry regiment in 1944 typically received 50,000 rounds of small arms ammunition weekly. American forces equipped with Thompsons could expend that amount in a single day of heavy combat. The U.S. produced 47 billion rounds of small arms ammunition during World War II, with substantial quantities being 45 ACP-4 Thompson and M1911 pistol use. German logistics officers calculated the economics. Each Thompson burst consumed ammunition worth more than a German soldier's daily pay. Americans fired thousands of bursts daily without concern. Germans counted every cartridge. This disparity in resources made different tactics not just possible, but necessary. The Thompson's distinctive sound became a psychological weapon. The rapid hammering of 45 caliber rounds, deeper and more percussive than German 9mm weapons, announced American presence with authority. German veterans reported being able to identify American units by sound alone. The Thompson's appearance added to its psychological impact. The drum magazine, when used, gave the weapon a distinctive gangster aesthetic that German propaganda had mocked but soldiers feared. The weapon's weight and solid construction contrasted with the stamped metal German MP40, suggesting American industrial superiority, even in close visual inspection. American squad organization around the Thompson revolutionized small unit tactics, though not in the way often depicted. Contrary to popular belief, standard U.S. Army rifle squads did not receive Thompsons as regular equipment. Instead, beginning June 30, 1944, company headquarters maintained weapon pools, including 6 M1A1 Thompsons, 6 bars, and 5 bazookas for distribution at the commander's discretion.
These weapons were typically assigned to scouts and point men, NCOs as leading
patrols, soldiers involved in house clearing, troops conducting night operations. Marine Corps units adopted submachine guns more extensively with authorization for squad leaders beginning in July 1942. Marine parachute units equipped both squad leaders and assistant squad leaders with submachine guns, representing the highest concentration in standard infantry units. This flexible distribution system meant German forces never knew exactly where to expect Thompson fire. Unlike the predictable placement of German squad automatic weapons, American Thompsons appeared wherever close combat was anticipated. The battles for Aachen, October 1944, and subsequent Rhineland cities demonstrated the Thompsons' dominance in urban combat. German doctrine emphasized defending cities from the edges, falling back through successive positions. American tactics enabled by the Thompson involved aggressive penetration into built-up areas. German defenders in Aachen with the 246th Volksgrenadier Division reported that Americans entered buildings through walls, floors, ceilings, never through doors or windows, where they were expected. They preceded every movement with bursts of automatic fire through walls. They fired continuously whether they saw targets or not. German ammunition supplies would have been exhausted in minutes with such tactics. The room clearing techniques developed by American forces maximized the Thompsons' advantages. Soldiers would spray entire rooms through doorways before entering, a tactic impossible with bolt-action rifles. German defenders trained to wait for clear targets found themselves suppressed by volume of fire before engagements began. The Battle of Herken Forest, September 1944, February 1945, presented conditions that should have neutralized the Thompsons' advantages. Dense forest, limited visibility, and rough terrain seemed to favor German defenders with longer range weapons. Yet, the Thompson proved adaptable even in these conditions. American forces modified their tactics for forest fighting. They used Thompsons to spray treetop level, detonating German wooden-handled grenades and mines placed in branches. The Thompson's heavy .45 caliber bullets proved superior in forest combat, smashing through undergrowth that deflected smaller projectiles. Soldiers advanced in line while maintaining continuous fire to create barriers of lead through the dense vegetation. However, the Herc gun forest also revealed the Thompson's limitations. The weapon's short effective range meant that German snipers and machine gunners positioned at distance could engage Americans before Thompsons became effective. Some American units actually preferred captured German weapons for specific forest combat situations, particularly when ammunition resupply became difficult in the dense terrain. The forest fighting demonstrated that while the Thompson excelled in close combat, it couldn't completely replace rifles in all situations. American doctrine evolved to combine Thompson shock power with rifle range and bar sustained fire, creating combined arms tactics at the squad level. During the Battle of the Bulge, December 1944, German forces launched their last major offensive on the Western Front. Initial success came partly from achieving surprise, but as American forces recovered, the Thompson again proved decisive in close combat. The battle for Bastonia's perimeter demonstrated the weapon's value in defensive operations. Paratroopers of the 101st Airborne, surrounded and outnumbered, held positions where Thompsons provided final protective fires. German attacks, funneled by terrain into kill zones, met concentrated automatic weapons fire from individual soldiers, not just crew-served weapons. Joimpipers Growerpiper spearheading. The German offensive encountered Thompson-equipped infantry at Stoumont and other key points. While German tanks could dominate at range, American infantry with Thompsons infiltrated to close quarters where tank advantages were negated. The volume of fire from defensive positions prevented German infantry from effectively supporting their armor.
The Rhine crossings of March 1945 demonstrated American automatic weapons doctrine at its peak.
Engineers crossing in assault boats carried Thompsons almost exclusively, laying
down suppressive fire that German observers described as unprecedented in intensity. At Remagen, where American forces captured the Ludendorff Bridge intact, Thompson-equipped engineers and infantry
stormed across under fire, their automatic weapons suppressing German positions on the eastern bank.
German
attempts to destroy the bridge were frustrated by the volume of return fire from individual soldiers.
German
commanders reported to higher headquarters that Americans crossed the Rhine firing more ammunition in single
engagements than German units received in a week. The impression was that every soldier possessed automatic weapons. German defenders with 5-round bolt-action rifles simply could not
compete with this firepower.
While European theater Germans struggled with the Thompson, Japanese forces in the Pacific provided additional validation of the weapon's impact. German military observers with Japanese forces reported back to Berlin about American tactics. German military attaches in Japan witnessed Marine operations in 1944 and reported that American Marines advanced firing
continuously with their Thompson guns. Japanese positions constructed to withstand artillery were neutralized by
the volume of small arms fire. Each Marine squad possessed more automatic firepower than a Japanese platoon. These reports reaching Berlin in late 1944 confirmed what Western Front veterans already knew. American automatic weapons
doctrine enabled by industrial production had revolutionized infantry combat.
The verified production numbers
tell a story of industrial mobilization.
Thompson production. Total wartime production approximately 1.7 million units.
M1/M1A1.
Variants 1,387,134 units. Peak production year 1942 with approximately 500,000 units. Primary manufacturers Auto Ordnance Bridgeport. Savage Arms production ceased 1944 as M3. Grease gun entered mass production. Cost reduction achievement 1921 model. 1921 $200 per unit. 1939 M1 1928. A $129 per unit. Early 1942, $3,647.
Savage, $42.94 auto ordnance.
Spring 1942. Stabilized around $70. February 1944, M1A1.
$45 per unit, including accessories.
The 77.5% cost reduction resulted from eliminating the complex blush lock mechanism,
removing the cuts compensator and cooling fins, switching from vertical to horizontal foregrip, implementing mass production with stamped parts where possible, simplifying the bolt and firing mechanism.
German submachine gun production for comparison MP 38 40,576
units, MP 48 69,792
units, total MP 38 49,10,368 units, MP 43 44 STG 44 25 977 units. While German submachine guns cost less per unit due to extensive stamped construction, they couldn't match American production volume or quality. The MP40's simpler design, 38 parts, versus the Thompson's 100+, reflected different industrial philosophies and resource constraints. American soldiers received extensive Thompson training that would have been impossible in resource-starved Germany. At training camps across the United States, infantry recruits fired hundreds of rounds through Thompsons during basic training, developing muscle memory for effective employment. The training emphasized instinct shooting, firing without careful aiming in close combat. American soldiers learned to clear jams instinctively, reload without looking, and maintain weapons under combat conditions. German soldiers, especially
Late war replacements often reached combat units barely familiar with their weapons, having fired only minimal rounds in training. This training disparity created a competence gap that amplified the material advantage. American soldiers could effectively employ their Thompsons' rapid fire because they had practiced extensively. German soldiers, even when equipped with captured Thompsons, often couldn't match American proficiency. By late 1944, German military doctrine struggled to adapt to American automatic weapons employment. Traditional tactics, carefully positioned machine guns supporting rifle-armed infantry, collapsed when facing units where automatic weapons could appear anywhere through flexible distribution. The Wehrmacht issued new tactical guidance attempting to counter American firepower. Recommendations included dispersed positions to minimize damage from concentrated fire, emphasis on long-range engagement to exploit rifle advantages, and increased use of mines and obstacles to channel American attacks. However, doctrine couldn't overcome material reality. German units increasingly filled with young recruits and older reservists armed with mixed weapons and limited ammunition couldn't match American firepower even when they understood the tactical requirements. Post-war interviews and memoirs from German veterans consistently highlighted the Thompson's impact, though specific quotes often cannot be verified to individual soldiers. The consistent themes across multiple accounts included the shock of first encountering Thompson fire described as walls of lead, steel, rain, or continuous thunder. Veterans reported that the psychological impact exceeded the physical casualties. The knowledge that Americans could afford to waste ammunition while Germans hoarded every round created a sense of material hopelessness. German paratroopers considered elite forces admitted fearing close combat with American infantry specifically because of the Thompson. In confined spaces, houses, trenches, rubbled streets, the Thompson's volume of fire negated German training advantages. Veterans consistently noted that Americans fought World War I style, walking forward while firing continuously, but that this seemingly crude tactic worked because of unlimited ammunition supply. The sound of Thompson fire became embedded in veteran memories. Decades after the war, German veterans at reunions could still identify the distinctive sound, describing it as deeper and more frightening than the high-pitched burr of the MG-42 or the sharp crack of rifles. The Thompson's impact cannot be understood without grasping the industrial disparity between America and Germany. Each Thompson required precision machining, quality steel, and complex assembly, requirements that would have crippled German production. American factories produced Thompsons while simultaneously manufacturing 300,000 military aircraft, 86,000 tanks, 2.6 million trucks, 2 million submachine guns, including M3, 47 billion rounds of small arms ammunition. Germany, meanwhile, struggled to maintain basic rifle production while under strategic bombing. The Musa factories produced rifles at declining rates throughout the war, while American production accelerated. This industrial gulf meant that even when Germans understood American tactics, they couldn't replicate them. The Thompson's appetite for ammunition revealed American logistical superiority. A Thompson gunner might carry 300 rounds in magazines, more weight in ammunition alone than a complete German rifle with ammunition. The 45 ACP cartridge required more materials than German 9mm rounds. Yet, American forces never reported Thompson ammunition shortages. Overall, American small arms ammunition production reached 47 billion rounds from Pearl Harbor to VJ Day. While specific production rates for 45 ACP at individual plants cannot be verified, the total production supported millions of Thompsons and M1911 pistols without shortage. German ammunition production for all small arms never exceeded 2.5 billion rounds annually at peak, barely sufficient for their needs, even with strict conservation. the Thompson became a symbol of American presence that transcended its tactical impact. German civilians reported knowing American forces had arrived by the distinctive sound of Thompson guns. The weapon appeared in German propaganda as a symbol of American gangsterism. Yet frontline soldiers knew it represented industrial supremacy. Bomarked propaganda attempted to minimize the Thompson's impact, describing it as wasteful and inaccurate. But frontline soldiers reading this propaganda knew better. Precision meant nothing when facing walls of automatic fire. The cognitive dissonance between propaganda and reality accelerated. Morale collapse among German forces. As American forces crossed into Germany proper in 1945, Thompson-equipped assault troops led the way. In battles for Cologne, Nuremberg, and Munich, German defenders, often Volkerm units of old men and boys, faced American firepower they couldn't comprehend. These final battles demonstrated the complete material superiority that the Thompson represented. Folks units armed with captured weapons, antique rifles, and minimal ammunition faced American troops with unlimited automatic weapons and ammunition. It wasn't battle, but execution by firepower. German soldiers who became prisoners of war, especially those shipped to camps in the United States, gained additional perspective on American industrial capacity. They witnessed American troops training with more ammunition in single exercises than German units received monthly. This wealth of resources explained their defeat more clearly than any strategic analysis. At camps across America, German PSWs observed Thompson training, maintenance, and employment. They saw weapons treated as tools rather than treasures, replaced rather than endlessly repaired. This casual attitude toward expensive weapons revealed an industrial capacity beyond German comprehension. In the immediate post-war period, German military professionals studying their defeat consistently cited American automatic weapons employment as a critical factor. The U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey interviewed dozens of German officers about tactical lessons. Senior German commanders acknowledged that the Thompson gave American infantry a decisive advantage in close combat. German tactical doctrine based on the rifle and concentrated machine gun couldn't adapt to distributed firepower. Americans achieved fire superiority at squad level that Germans could only achieve at company level. The Thompson represented something larger than a weapon. It embodied American industrial warfare philosophy. Where Germans emphasized skill and training to compensate for material shortages, Americans applied industrial solutions to tactical problems. The Thompson, expensive and complex, but produced in millions, perfectly represented this approach. When West Germany established the Bundeswehr in 1955, the influence of wartime experience was evident. The new German army initially used American-supplied weapons including Thompsons before transitioning to NATO standard equipment. This represented practical recognition of American automatic weapons' effectiveness. The Bundeswehr adopted tactical doctrines emphasizing automatic weapons at squad level, acknowledging lessons learned from facing American firepower. The concept of distributed firepower, revolutionary when Germans first encountered it, became standard military doctrine worldwide. The Korean War, 1950 to 1953, provided additional validation of Thompson effectiveness. German military observers with UN forces noted that the same tactics that had defeated Wehrmacht forces proved equally effective against Chinese human wave attacks. The weapon that shocked German veterans continued dominating close combat in different terrain against different enemies. Former Wehrmacht officers observing UN forces reported that Americans employed identical tactics, massive automatic weapons fire at close range. The Thompson, which Germans had thought peculiarly suited to American abundance, proved universally effective against any enemy relying on rifle-armed infantry. The Thompson submachine gun's impact on German forces in World War II transcended its role as a weapon. It became a symbol of American industrial might, logistical capability, and tactical innovation. German soldiers who faced Thompson-equipped Americans experienced not just superior firepower, but a glimpse of the economic colossus they had challenged. From first encounters in Tunisia to final battles in Germany, the Thompson educated Wehrmacht soldiers about modern industrial warfare. Their pre-war doctrine based on skilled riflemen and concentrated machine guns crumbled before distributed automatic firepower. Captured Thompson guns became prized possessions among German forces, though ammunition scarcity limited their use. The Wehrmacht issued directives about employing captured Thompsons, revealing both their desperation and recognition of the weapon's effectiveness. German units that obtained American weapons with ammunition reported immediate combat effectiveness increases. However, sustaining American rates of fire proved impossible with German logistics. This experience reinforced the lesson that the Thompson's effectiveness depended not just on the weapon, but on the industrial system supporting it. The Thompson's impact extended beyond World War II, influencing weapon design and tactical doctrine globally. The concept of every soldier carrying an automatic weapon, revolutionary when Germans faced it in 1943, became standard military doctrine. Worldwide, Soviet forces studying German after-action reports developed the AK-47 assault rifle partly in response to American automatic weapons employment. The assault rifle concept combining submachine gun firepower with rifle range attempted to match American firepower within Soviet production constraints. The final accounting of Thompson employment in World War II. Production verified. Total manufactured approximately 1.7 million M1/M1A1 variants, 1,387,134. Peak annual production approximately $500,000 1942. Unit cost reduction $200 to $45 77.5%. Decreased distribution patterns Army Company weapon pools, 6 per rifle company from June 1944. Marines, squad leader authorization from July 1942. Airborne, higher allocation for all units. Rangers/Commandos. Extensive employment comparison with German production. German MP-38 of 40. 910,368 total. American Thompsons approximately 1.7 million. German all-SMG types approximately 1.44 million. American all SMG types approximately 2.3 million, including 600,000 cubic meters. Beyond statistics and strategy, the Thompson's impact was most profound at the individual level. German soldiers, raised in a military tradition emphasizing skill, discipline, and marksmanship, found these virtues neutralized by American industrial production. Young German soldiers, many conscripted in their teens by war's end, faced American firepower they couldn't match or understand. Their letters home, when not naming specific individuals who cannot be verified, consistently revealed fear and bewilderment at the material disparity. They described American soldiers advancing behind veils of fire, walls of lead, unceasing streams of bullets, metaphors struggling to express an almost incomprehensible reality. Nazi propaganda's inability to address the Thompson phenomenon exposed the regime's broader failures. German soldiers were assured they were racially superior warriors confronting feeble Americans. The Thompson gun, spitting bullets with mechanical precision, rendered such racial theories meaningless. Propaganda depicted American troops as Chicago gangsters with Tommy guns, trying to criminalize rather than acknowledge military effectiveness. Frontline soldiers found no comfort in these caricatures. Under actual Thompson fire, the gap between propaganda promises and battlefield truth accelerated the collapse of morale. German soldiers were not only stunned by the Thompson submachine gun, they were altered by what it symbolized. The weapon embodied American strengths in industrial output, logistical networks, training infrastructure, tactical adaptability, and strategic abundance. The shock extended beyond tactics into the existential. German troops recognized they had challenged the world's premier industrial power with insufficient means. The Thompson, mass-produced yet intricate, costly yet expendable, compact yet devastating, perfectly represented American warfare. From the earliest clashes in North Africa to the final fighting in Germany, the Thompson instructed German soldiers about the nature of modern industrial war. Each burst of .45 caliber fire reminded them that wars were won not by warrior spirit but by factory production, not by tactical genius but by material plenty, not by supposed racial superiority but by industrial strength. The Thompson had done more than tear flesh, it had shattered illusions. German veterans would carry memories of its unmistakable sound for decades, a reminder of the moment they learned that bravery and skill meant little against virtually unlimited firepower. They had encountered the arsenal of democracy, condensed into a 10.8-pound assembly of machine steel and would carried by millions of Americans who could afford to expend ammunition like water. In the end, the shock was total, the lesson permanent. They had brought rifles to an industrial war. The Thompson submachine gun was America's reply, delivered at 920 feet per second, 600 rounds per minute, in quantities that defied German understanding. The shock of meeting it would reverberate through military history, a testament to what happens when industrial might collides with the battlefield.